Hello and a warm welcome to this week's service of worship from Kingswood Meeting House. Just in case you are wondering, we haven't had to close the chapel again, but there is a big summer fair taking place today using our building and our grounds. If you go along between 1 and 5 this afternoon, there are lots of things that you can see and do. The logistics of organising this have meant that it's easier not to hold a service in person this week, but there will be a service in the chapel next week at 11 a.m. led by Gavin Lloyd. You'll be able to sing. If you couldn't sing before, I suggest you come along, give it a go and prepare to be surprised. As ever, we begin our time together by kindling our chalice flame, the symbol of our faith that unites us and Unitarians around the world in a common purpose. For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. May our many sparks meet and merge in communion of heart and soul. Words by Bruce Southworth. Now, we don't normally announce the hymns in our online services, but I chose this one for probably obvious reasons. However, it is unofficially on our chapel's banned list because nearly every time we choose it, it ruins the weather. Hopefully you won't be sheltering from the rain or drying off when you're watching this. If you are, I can only apologise. But I invite you to sing When the Summer Sun is Shining. We unite now in the fellowship of prayer. We give thanks for the miracle of the world around us and everything in it, the place we call home, the place that gives us shelter, sustenance and a connection with the divine, a place to find peace, comfort and hope, a place of function, but a place of beauty. As a place that is nurtured and cared for us, may we find ways to nurture and care for it in return. We will have a few moments of quiet now for your own thoughts, prayers and reflections, remembering especially those known to us who may be sick, bereaved or suffering at this time. And I invite you now to join with me in saying the words of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. And I have just a short reading to share with you today entitled Pledge of Allegiance to the Earth, written by Vern Barnett. I pledge allegiance to the earth and all life, the fields and streams, the mountains and seas, the forests and deserts, the air and soil, all species and reserves, habitats and environments. One world, one creation, one home, indivisible for all, affected by pollution anywhere, depleted by any waste, endangered by greedy consumption, degradation by faithlessness, preserved by recycling, conservation and reverence, the great gift renewed for all generations to come, protected, preserved by reducing, reusing, recycling with conservation and reverence, the great gift renewed for all generations to come. At the risk of making a sweeping generalisation, I'm going to say that there's one thing we don't deal with well in Britain: heat. And we've had plenty of it over the last few days. I'm sure there's a few of you that will have loved it, but possibly not that many. And even the few die-hard sun worshippers I know have been complaining that it's too hot. It's been too hot to do much in the day and too hot to sleep at night. A bonus is that I've spent much more time in the gym. I've not lost any weight and I've not got any fitter, but they have fantastic air conditioning. It's like when you get off a plane in a hot country, but in reverse. It's a blissful blast of cold air hitting you the moment you walk through the door. It's been a good reminder of how even simple things can bring so much pleasure. The best things in life are free. At least they are if you don't have to pay the electric bill. Like many of you, I've had holidays abroad where it's been much hotter than it has been here. But somehow that's different. We can cope with it then. We expect it. Look forward to it even. Here it seems out of context and somehow almost wrong. We've got the weather we'd expect to find in Spain or Greece, but we're still in Birmingham, having to do all the mundane things we have to do to keep our lives going. I don't know about you, but I almost feel a bit guilty for not being able to enjoy it. It's not that long ago I was complaining that the heating was still coming on in June. Maybe it's just one extreme to another. A few weeks ago I saw a post on one of our Unitarian Facebook groups asking us to devote either a whole service or part of a service to talking about the environment and the climate. So with the weather being a hot topic of conversation, this seems like a good time. To be perfectly honest, climate change is the subject I usually try to avoid. I suppose I like to bury my head in the sand to a degree. I usually change the channel if a discussion about it comes on the radio or the television. It's not that I don't care, I really do, but frankly it's all a bit gloomy and depressing and probably a little bit scary. It's not really something I like to dwell on. As a subject, it seems completely overwhelming. I just don't know where to start, much less how to think about trying to tackle it. Having said all that, I don't think it's something that we can afford to ignore forever. The last few weeks have seen record-breaking temperatures in parts of the United States and Canada. I'm very glad I've not been there. And terrible floods in parts of Germany, Austria and also in China that some experts have said are the worst in a millennium. I can't pretend that I understand all the science behind it, and I wouldn't like to say for certain that these freak events wouldn't have happened anyway. But it certainly seems like something a bit out of the ordinary is going on. Even here in the UK, we've noticed a change in our seasons. Plants seem to spring into life at unusual times. Having a birthday in the middle of winter, I grew up always expecting there to be at least some snow on the big day. But then one year there wasn't, and there never has been since. I don't want to make this all doom and gloom. We still have a lot to be thankful for. We have a beautiful planet to live on and wonder at. I know I'm preaching to the converted in a sense because I've seen many of you sharing pictures of your beautiful gardens and enjoying seeing the wildlife we have in the area. I often feel that we're very fortunate to live where we do. If we feel like being around other people and want to enjoy the hustle and bustle and convenience of the city, it's right on our doorstep. But go in the opposite direction and so is the peace and tranquility of the countryside. It's clearly something that's very important to us. And anything that threatens our natural environment, whether it's construction plans or the fly tipping that seems to be prevalent at the moment, it often faces fierce opposition. Clearly, nature and the environment is something that we feel strongly about. It's vital for our health and well-being, and ultimately our survival. And something that we need to strive to preserve and protect for ourselves and future generations. I know that many of us, myself included, find a deep connection between nature and the divine. Whether it was created or whether it evolved, there's still so much around us that can bring a sense of awe and wonder, bring peace and calm into our lives. It gives us a sense of perspective when we need it. It gives us so much that we have a duty to cherish and protect it. I suppose it's a bit like our beautiful chapel. Generations have nurtured and cared for it and given their time, money and expertise so that it could be an important spiritual home not just for them but for those who came after. We continue to do the same and hope that our legacy will be a thriving spiritual community flourishing long after we've gone. Of course, in order for that to happen, we also need to think about the wider world, the impact we're having on it, and what we can do to ensure that we leave a healthy and vibrant environment for future generations. I've already mentioned that climate change and the environment can feel like an overwhelming subject. I'm feeling overwhelmed already. But it's important to remember that an awful lot of us are all in this together. It's easy to feel powerless when we look at the big picture And yes, undoubtedly, at some point in the future, very significant changes will have to be made. The way we need to heat and power our homes will need to change, as well as our forms of transport and the way we all feed ourselves. Perhaps it all seems insurmountable, but is it really? The saying goes that necessity is the mother of invention. And we've certainly found some very creative ways of solving problems that we never knew we had over the last few months. I'm not suggesting that the dreaded Zoom meetings are going to change the world. And I will happily live out the rest of my days without having to play the piano down a laptop and hoping everyone will hear it ever again. But it does show that we have the ability to make major changes, and we can make them quickly. I've been amazed at just how quickly Parliament can pass new laws when it has to. I don't think that any one of us is going to change the world and solve the climate problem. And we probably don't have to. Many brilliant scientific brains are looking at the problems and into possible solutions. Hopefully, we've learned to have faith in them. But ultimately, it's down to us to listen and use our collective influence to bring about the changes that we need. To use the analogy of our chapel once more, its achievements are the results of a lot of people uniting together in love and fellowship for a common purpose. Maybe what it really needs is for each of us to gradually make small changes to the way we live our lives, and together we can have a much greater impact than hoping a few people will change the world. I started writing this as a topic I wasn't really sure I wanted to talk about, but strangely I now feel quite positive about the future. Perhaps that's a lesson to me to confront things rather than bury my head in the sand. The world is a beautiful place, and I'm confident that as long as enough of us give it the love, care and respect it deserves, it will continue to be so for many generations to come. Amen. Our time together draws to a close, and as it was lit, our flame must be extinguished. But may its message of peace, hope, and unity remain with you for the week ahead. Amen.